Hi, this is Amy Copeland, Assistant Director of State Funding at the TEA, and this is an HB 3 and 30 webinar about Recapture. Today we'll be covering the following topics. We'll begin with some background on Recapture, then we'll cover Recapture formula changes as well as procedural changes for Recapture under HB 3. Additional resources will also be provided, including options and procedures for districts with excess local revenue and next steps for both TEA and school districts, and end by providing additional HB 3 resources. TEA staff assisting with the content of this presentation include Leo Lopez, Associate Commissioner for School Finance and Chief School Finance Officer, Al McKenzie, Director of Forecasting and Fiscal Analysis, and Kim Wall, our Recapture Program Administrator. We'll begin with some background on Recapture. First, what is Recapture? Texas Education Code makes provisions for certain school districts to share their excess local tax revenue with other school districts. Excess local revenue is local revenue that exceeds a school district's formula entitlement. The funds that are distributed by districts subject to these provisions are recaptured by the school finance system to assist with the financing of public education for all school districts. One commonly asked question is, how is recapture used by the state? More specifically, are recapture payments from school districts used to fund other functions of the state budget? The answer is no. Recaptured funds are appropriated in the General Appropriations Act as a method of finance to help pay for the Foundation School Program. Texas Education Code requires recapture receipts to be deposited in the state treasury, and they may be used only for FSP purposes. Next, let's step through the basic structure of school finance. The Foundation School Program ensures that all school districts receive substantially equal access to similar revenue per student at similar tax effort. The FSP determines the amount of state and local funding due to school districts under Texas school finance law and provides the state share of this funding to school districts. The first step is to determine the FSP formula entitlement, or the amount of funding districts are entitled to based upon the students that are enrolled. Next, we calculate the local share of the Foundation School Program, which essentially represents local property taxes collected by school districts. Then, the state makes up the difference between the local share and the formula entitlement. However, for some school districts, their local tax collections exceed their formula entitlement. For districts in this situation, excess local revenues above the formula entitlement are then recaptured and redistributed to other schools across Texas. Now that we've stepped through the basic structure of school finance, let's move on to look at the impact to recapture as a result of HB 3. The amount of recapture receipts in 2019 from 220 districts is estimated to be $2.8 billion. The middle column shows how the recapture system, if left unchanged, was projected to nearly double over the next 4 years, with estimated recapture receipts from 292 districts projected to be over $4.8 billion by 2023. As a result of HB 3, recapture has been significantly reduced. Under HB 3, anticipated recapture in 2023 represents less than half of prior law projections, or around $2.3 billion. In the green column on the right, you can see the number of districts projected to owe recaptures down from 220 to only 161, and the total estimated amount of recapture as a result of HB 3 is reduced by almost $2.5 billion. The Texas Commission on Public School Finance, established under House Bill 21, 85th Legislature, examined the state school finance system and concluded that recapture as structured was growing rapidly and becoming increasingly unsustainable. This graph shows receipts from 1994 to 2019 and projections from 2020 through 2023, both prior to and after HB 3. When originally implemented in 1994, only a handful of school districts paid into recapture, and total receipts were $181 million. It took a decade before total receipts reached $1 billion annually, and another 14 years before the state crossed the $2 billion threshold in 2018. Property value increases, paired with fixed tax rates, caused tax bills to increase rapidly across the state, pushing more and more districts into recapture. The orange bars in years 2020 through 2023 represent anticipated revenue under prior law. As previously mentioned, left unchanged, 292 districts were projected to owe almost $5 billion in recapture by 2023, whereas the dark blue bars in years 2020 through 2023 represent the changes to recapture resulting from HB 3. Total estimated recapture under HB 3 is reduced significantly from $4.8 billion to $2.3 billion. The next section of slides outlines formula changes to recapture required under HB 3. Recapture is projected to be reduced over prior law by $3.6 billion in the next biennium as a result of HB 3. Recapture under HB 3 was reduced by a variety of methods, which we've categorized into 3 main approaches. First, the calculation of recapture is now based on local revenue in excess of entitlement instead of equalized wealth levels. We'll step through the main drivers of this change in the next few slides. Second, the total entitlement to school districts increased. New allotments were added, and existing allotments were expanded. Third, property taxes were lowered, resulting in fewer tax collections. HB 3 also contains a mechanism to lower future property tax rates, which will be discussed in detail in a future webinar. Now let's step through these topics in more detail. Under HB 3, the disparities between recapture and non-recapture districts caused by the Cost of Education Index have been eliminated. The Cost of Education Index was repealed, with funding redirected to the basic allotment, so districts no longer receive funding based on a decades-old metric. The CEI had not changed since initial data was gathered in 1989, and some areas had notably different CEI changes even though the districts were adjacent. Under prior law, recapture districts only received half their CEI allocation. Recapture and non-recapture districts are now treated the same in the school finance formulas. Under HB 3, school districts will no longer be sending recapture dollars back to the state for costs associated with basic student transportation. School districts designated as recapture districts prior to HB 3 had local shares that exceeded their total cost of Tier 1 entitlement, and because transportation was excluded from the calculation of weighted average daily attendance, or WADA, they did not receive the benefit of the transportation allotment. As seen in the graphic on the left, the recapture formula under prior law could cause districts to have revenue below their entitlement, whereas recapture under HB 3 will never cause a district's revenue to be below their entitlement. HB 3 contains an adjustment for certain districts that have excess local revenue above their entitlement, which would normally result in them having less than their entitlement, to adjust local share excess local revenue to ensure that recapture doesn't pull that district's revenue down below their entitlement if it otherwise would have done so. This slide contains the previously mentioned adjustment that occurs under HB 3 for reference, as well as an example of how entitlement prevails over recapture for districts with local optional homestead exemptions. Next, we'll go over other formula changes to recapture required under HB 3. The previous method to calculate recapture used prior year values to arrive at a proportional tax base reduction percentage. This percentage was applied to current year tax collections to arrive at a recapture amount. This formula for recapture created budget instability, causing surpluses and deficits. The shift to current year values aligns recapture with entitlement. Additional details about the move to current year values are forthcoming in a future HB 3 and 30 webinar. Portions of income from the Permanent School Fund distributed to the Available School Fund are intended to be provided to school districts on a per-student basis. However, prior to HB 3, not all districts benefited equally from the ASF. For non-recapture districts, this money counted toward the total entitlement funding a district received. For recapture districts, the constitutional funds were often provided on top of the locally generated entitlement funding. To provide this funding more equitably, under HB 3, all districts now receive ASF funding as the first method of finance before incorporating local and other state revenues into the funding calculations. HB 3 also eliminates the benefit received by districts subject to recapture based on information from the district in the 1992-1993 school year over a 5-year period through the creation of the Equalized Wealth Transition Grant. A school district is entitled to receive an annual allotment in an amount equal to the amount of additional revenue a school district received for the 2018-2019 school year, reduced by 20% in each year through 2024. The next section covers procedural changes for recapture required under HB 3. The early agreement credit under former Chapter 41 is repealed, with funding redirected to the basic allotment. Therefore, the September 1 deadline is no longer relevant for districts to submit contracts to reduce local revenue levels in order to receive an early agreement credit. The payment option to submit 7 equal recapture payments from February through August remains unchanged. However, districts now have the option of making one lump sum payment of recapture annually in August. Beginning in school year 2019-2020, districts subject to recapture will select one of these payment options in our online FSP system by January 15th. Annually, TEA will continue to notify districts with Tier 1 excess local revenue and Tier 2 Level 2 excess local revenue, as established in Chapter 48, Section 257. For notification purposes in school year 2019-2020, because the current tax year property values are unknown at this time, 2019 district property values were estimated by applying the comptroller growth assumption of 5.76% to the 2018 tax year district property values. However, on a moving forward basis, the TEA intends to establish a method to collect better estimates of current tax year property values from school districts for notification purposes. Note that the final determination of whether a school district will be required to make recapture payments is based on the district's tax effort and the extent to which the district's local revenue level exceeds the Tier 1 entitlement, or the Tier 2 copper penny guaranteed yield of $49.28 if the district is assessing copper pennies. The TEA will make a final determination regarding the payment of excess local revenue using the district's final enrollment, entitlement and local share under Chapter 48, final state certified property values for tax year 2019, adopted M&O tax rate for tax year 2019, and M&O taxes collected by your district in 2019-2020. A provision in former Chapter 41, which provided certain districts the option of withholding state aid in lieu of holding an election, has been repealed. This provision is commonly referred to as the netting option. However, similar provision in Chapter 48 will allow districts to offset the reduction of excess local revenue against Chapter 48 funds provided in Subchapter F. All districts will have the netting option available to them. To use the state aid calculated under Subchapter F, Chapter 48 Education Code as an offset to their attendance credit for purposes of reducing their local revenue level. Districts using this option are required to submit the District Intent Choice Selection Form indicating this option and complete an Option 3 netting contract, which can be found in the Options and Procedures for Local Revenue in Excess of Entitlement 2019-2020 school year and on the Excess Local Revenue webpage on the TEA's website. Another commonly asked question is, what happens if I don't compress my taxes in compliance with HB 3? The answer is, the agency, in calculating funding under the FSP, will reduce state aid or adjust recapture in an amount equal to the amount of revenue generated by a school district's tax effort that is not in compliance with HB 3. A key point is the district will not benefit from the additional tax revenue. The district may also be liable for other civil remedies for failure to appropriately reduce tax rates. The TEA has already notified districts with local revenue in excess of entitlement, and rulemaking is underway on the options and procedures for districts with local revenue in excess of entitlement for school year 2019-2020, with a target filing date of September 2019. A draft of this document for school year 2019-2020 will be made available soon on the Excess Local Revenue webpage on the TEA's website. Districts that received a notification must take the following actions. By September 1, 2019, submit the District Intent Choice Selection Form through the Excess Local Revenue subsystem of the online FSP system, indicating which options the district intends to reduce local revenue in excess of entitlement for school year 2019-2020. This action allows districts to move forward with preparation for an election under Chapter 49 Education Code if necessary. By January 15, 2020, submit an agreement or contract to reduce excess local revenue. For all questions related to options and procedures for districts with excess local revenue, please visit the Excess Local Revenue webpage on the TEA's website or contact our Recapture Program Administrator, Kim Wall. Visit our HB3 webpage regularly to check for the most up-to-date information from TEA on the implementation of House Bill 3 and send any related questions to the designated HB3 email address. This allows the TEA to make questions and answers for various topics available to all interested parties. Thank you for tuning in to this HB3 and 30 webinar. We hope the information is helpful. Please don't hesitate to explore our online resources and follow up with any questions as you work through the implementation of House Bill 3.